Okay, friends, here is a simple bottom line, a simple truth for anybody whose life currently is, or anybody who anticipates that their life may one day be a bit chaotic. Here's the truth: the storm around you does not have to become a storm within you. Hey, see, here's the way that life normally works. Some of you have seen this kind of thing. It's just water with soap in it, but you can buy it on Amazon.com if you want a fancy label on it. You swish it around, and there's a tornado looking thing on the inside. This is the way life normally works. If there's chaos around us, a storm around us, it becomes chaotic on the inside. There's a storm within us. And most of us not only actually operate this way, but I think that many of us actually think that this is the only way to operate. The kids go crazy, so therefore we go crazy. The market's nuts, so we go nuts. This is just the natural way that human beings work. But don't you know some people that don't actually operate this way? That there's chaos around them, but they still remain calm on the inside? And haven't you even had some fleeting moments where that's been true for you? Somebody described it one way as a peace that passes understanding. A peace that I'm not sure that I should have. I don't understand why I'm calm in the midst of this, but I am. And how do we become men and women that not only believe that this is true with our minds, but that actually live this truth out with our lives? How do we become men and women who, even when the storm is raging around us, don't have a storm inside of us? All of this imagery, it comes out of something that Jesus did. Jesus famously stilled a storm at one point in his life. He's out on the Sea of Galilee, 12 disciples are with him, and a storm pops up. And we know that it's a particularly brutal storm because his disciples, many of them are fishermen, and they're losing their minds. And these are people who grew up fishing on the Sea of Galilee, had been in many storms before. So we know this is a bad one. And in the midst of that storm, Jesus is asleep in the boat. The disciples go up to him and they say to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we're perishing?" The way that I read this for years was that what they're saying is, hey, like, what's the deal? Why are you sleeping instead of saving us? Do you not care that we're all going to die? But I actually have grown to believe that's not what's happening. I don't think at this point the disciples know that Jesus has the ability to calm a storm. I mean, we're still early on, chapter 4, in Jesus' story here. And they know that he can do miraculous stuff, but the idea that he has the power to control nature, I think they haven't figured that out yet. They're not saying, "Jesus, why are you not saving us?" They're saying, "Jesus, why are you not freaking out like the rest of us? I mean, we're about to be in the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. Why are you not losing your mind like Peter and Matthew and me?" And then Jesus, he gets up and he says to the storm, "Peace, be still." The "be still" there is a Greek verb that comes from the Greek noun for muzzle. So he's literally saying, put a muzzle on it. No more bark, no more bite, and the sea is calm. And you can see why Jesus was calm all along. Jesus was calm all along because Jesus knew what Jesus could do. And he knew what he was going to do. He knew that even though the storm was bad, and maybe the worst storm that anybody had ever seen on the Sea of Galilee, he knew that it was bad, but he knew how the story was going to end. And he knew that there was going to be a lot of rain, and it was going to be really, really scary, but he also knew that the boat wasn't ultimately going to be swamped, that nobody's going to end up in the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. The men and the women that I know that live out this truth, the men and the women that I know who internally stay calm, are men and women who know how the story ends. They're men and women who know that while the storm rages around us, that it doesn't ultimately capsize the boat. It doesn't ultimately overcome us. They're men and women who know that Jesus says, look, there's going to be trouble in the world. And they know what he says right after that, but don't worry, I've overcome the world. They're men and women who know what Jesus can do. And they're men and women who know that even if there's a storm raging, that Jesus is still with us in the midst of it. They're men and women who know that though the storm rages around them, the storm doesn't have to rage within them. The man who said that you can have a peace that passes understanding. And he was a man who learned really quickly that the storm around him may continue to rage on. He was actually in a different storm on a different sea. And you know that he prayed that Jesus would calm the storm. He knew this story. He heard it firsthand from the disciples. You know he prayed that, but yet his storm raged on around him for days, and ultimately he ended up shipwrecked. And when he was shipwrecked, he ended up on a beach and he got bit by a snake. The storm was raging around him, but yet he was still able to have a peace that passes understanding inside of him. If our hope, if your hope is in the storm around you ceasing, then ultimately things might, if that's your hope, then your hope's in the wrong thing. I mean, if your hope is in your kids always being perfect, then you're going to end up being chaotic on the inside. If your hope is in the market, then ultimately you're hopeless. The hope can't be that the storm around us will stop. The hope has to be that in the midst of the storm, that the storm within us can cease. Jesus doesn't promise that he'll still the storm around us, but Jesus over and over and over again in the lives of the people who follow him, over and over and over again, he stills the storms that are within us. Friends, do you know this simple bottom line, this simple truth? The storm that is around you does not have to become a storm within you. God bless you.